Thank you, Howard, and thank you all for being here, braving the snows. I must confess that I felt somewhat like a 10-year-old last night in the sense that I was looking at the news forecasts, and I was sitting there in the back of my mind, I was saying, now, do I get a snow day tomorrow? But it's good to be up here and good to see the fortitude of New Yorkers, not only to push through the snow, but to have a lecture at this hour of the morning, which is unusual for New York. So congratulations for being here and pushing through it. I first met with you, as Howard said, back in 2002. At that time, we were all still coming to grips with the reality of terrorism here at home, and we were undergoing a shift in mindset, rethinking our place in the world and the dangers that we faced. And since that time, we have seen a number of dramatic shifts, not just in our perspectives on terrorism, but in the way we learn, and the way we communicate, and the way we conduct business. Shifts in the political, social, and economic climate, shifts in our way of life. Today, we communicate by texting, tweeting, and Skyping. We take pictures without film. We read books without pages. And every 6-year-old has a smartphone. We share the sundry details of our lives on Facebook. Most of us do, although for some reason no one wants to be friended by the director of the FBI. And YouTube made its debut just 5 years ago, and today I understand that 35 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. I also understand that most of them feature someone by the name of Justin Bieber. And at my age, I have to wonder, who the heck is this kid? And why can't somebody get him a haircut? These shifts are the result of globalization, often written about by Tom Friedman and others, and technology. And we have all felt the ripple effects of these shifts. And we in the FBI have seen a marked shift in criminal and terrorist threats. We not only face threats from Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, we confront homegrown terrorism, and these individuals are harder to identify. They can easily connect to other extremists on the internet, and they may be highly capable operationally. And for this reason, terrorism will remain our top priority for the foreseeable future. But we cannot discount shifting criminal threats, including those posed by lone offenders, such as the attack in Tucson. How do we find and stop an individual who would take up arms against his own community? It is a challenge, and yet we must do everything we can to prevent any such attack. We also face evolving threats from violent gangs, computer hackers, child predators, and white-collar criminals. But this morning I want to focus on one such evolving threat, and that is the threat from organized crime. Some believe that organized crime is a thing of the past, but unfortunately this is not the case. Traditional criminal syndicates still con, extort, and intimidate American citizens. And as you know, just last week we arrested nearly 130 members of La Cosa Nostra in New York, New Jersey, and New England. And we will continue to work with our state and local partners to end La Cosa Nostra's lifelong practice of crime and undue influence. But the playing field for organized crime has changed. We have seen a shift from regional families with a clear structure to flat, fluid networks with global reach. These international enterprises are more anonymous and more sophisticated. Rather than running discrete operations on their own turf, they are running multinational, multi-billion-dollar schemes from start to finish. We are investigating groups in Asia, Eastern Europe, West Africa, and the Middle East. And we are seeing cross-pollination between groups that have historically not worked together. Criminals who may never meet, but who share one thing in common, and that is greed. They may be former members of nation-state governments, security services, or the military, and these individuals know who and what to target and how best to do it. They are capitalists and entrepreneurs, but they are also master criminals who move easily between the licit and the illicit worlds. And in some cases, these organizations are as forward-leaning as Fortune 500 companies. This is not The Sopranos with 6 guys sitting in a diner shaking down a local business owner for $50 a week. These criminal enterprises are making billions of dollars from human trafficking, healthcare fraud, computer intrusions, and copyright infringement. They're cornering the market on natural gas, oil, precious metals, and selling to the highest bidder. And these crimes are not easily categorized, nor can the damage, the dollar loss, or the ripple effects be easily calculated. It is much like a Venn diagram where one crime intersects with another in different jurisdictions and with different groups. You may ask how that impacts you. You may not recognize the source, but you will feel the effects. You might pay more for a gallon of gas. You might pay more for a car from overseas. And you will pay more for health care, mortgages, clothes, food. And yet we are concerned with more than just the financial impact. These groups may infiltrate our businesses, provide logistical support to hostile foreign powers, may try to manipulate those at the highest levels of government. Indeed, these so-called iron triangles of organized criminals, corrupt government officials, and business leaders pose a significant national security threat. Turning for a moment to the link between transnational organized crime and terrorism. If a terrorist cannot obtain a passport, for example, he will find somebody who can. Terrorists may turn to street crime and, by extension, organized crime to raise money, as did the 2004 Madrid bombers. Organized criminals have become service providers. Could a Mexican group move a terrorist across the border? Could an Eastern European enterprise sell a weapon of mass destruction to a terrorist cell? The answer is quite likely yes. And criminal enterprises are motivated by money, not ideology, but they have no scruples about helping those who are for the right price. For us, intelligence and partnerships are key to our success in countering these new and diverse threats. In the past 9 years, we in the Bureau have shifted from being a law enforcement agency only to being a national security service that is threat-driven and intelligence-led. With regard to organized crime, we are using intelligence to expand upon what we already know, from phone, travel, financial records to extensive biographies of the key players. And we are sharing this information with our partners around the world. But we are also building a long-term strategy for dismantling these enterprises. As an example, last year we set up 2 units called threat focus cells to target Eurasian organized crime. The first focuses on the Semyon Mogilevich organization, and the second on the Brothers Circle enterprise. For those of you not familiar with either group, their memberships are large, their reach is global, and their scope of operations is broad. From weapons and drug trafficking, high-stakes fraud, global prostitution. And if left unchecked, the resulting impact to our economy and our security will be significant. Indeed, Semyon Mogilevich is on the FBI top 10 most wanted list and will remain so until he is captured. These threat focus cells include FBI personnel from the criminal, cyber, counterintelligence, international operations divisions. They also include our partners in law enforcement and the intelligence communities, both here at home and abroad. We're also taking a hard look at other groups around the world, such as West African and Southeast Asian organized crime. And we are sharing that intelligence with our partners, who in turn will add their own information. Our goal is to combine the resources and expertise of all of us to gain a full understanding of each group and to better understand what we must do together to put them out of business. But even the best intelligence is often not enough. We must present a united front. Joseph Petrosino, a detective in the New York Police Department, was one of the first to fight organized crime back in the early 1900s. He was a legend in law enforcement circles, and he was certainly one of New York's finest. This 5'3" Italian immigrant was a one-man intelligence collection platform and an undercover operations unit. He reportedly went undercover as a blind beggar, a sanitation worker, a health inspector, just to name a few. And along the way, he put a rather large dent in the operations of the Black Hand with the support of Teddy Roosevelt. But in 1909, when Petrosino traveled to Sicily, he was gunned down in the street. Petrosino had a limited network of support here at home, no network of which to speak overseas. He was the leader of a small, inexperienced team fighting large, deep-rooted organizations. And by all accounts, he was a marked man on borrowed time. But fortunately, those times have changed. Last October, with our state and local partners, we arrested 52 individuals, many of whom were alleged members of an Armenian-American syndicate. They were arrested for healthcare fraud amounting to more than $163 million. And among those arrested was an individual believed to be what is currently known as a thief in law, the elite in today's world of organized crime. And we have also built a solid network of support with our international partners. We have more than 60 legal attaché offices overseas, where agents and analysts work closely with their foreign counterparts, sharing intelligence and investigating cases together. In Budapest, FBI agents have worked side by side with the Hungarian National Police for more than 10 years, targeting Eurasian organized crime. And together we have identified and arrested criminals from Bulgaria, Poland, Romania, and Russia, just to name a few. And through these partnerships, these friendships, we are on a first-name basis with thousands of officers around the world, all of whom share the same goal, and that is keeping their citizens safe from every threat every day. Now, nearly 3 weeks have passed since the tragic attack in Tucson, and we still feel the impact of that attack, the idea that one individual could inflict such damage. We also confront terrorists who seek to inflict the greatest damage possible, gang members who cultivate crime and violence, computer hackers who target our financial networks, and organized criminals who will stop at nothing to make money. As all here know, I believe, Congresswoman Gifford's husband, Mark Kelly, is an astronaut, and his twin brother, Scott, is the current commander of the International Space Station. And 2 days after the attack from space, Commander Kelly led NASA in a moment of silence, and then speaking by radio, he said, "We have a unique vantage point up here. I see a very beautiful planet that seems inviting and peaceful, but unfortunately it is not. But we are better than this, and we must do better." As we all know, a world that is often inviting and peaceful can become violent, even deadly, in the blink of an eye. And we may not see the shift, but we will certainly feel the impact. But we together are better than the criminals and terrorists we face, and together we must do better, and together we must do more for the American people, for the American people deserve no less. Again, thank you for having me here on this blissful, snowy morning, and thank you for your support over all the years. It's been an honor to be here with you today and to work with you over these years. Thank you. Thank you, Howard.
From the New York Times. Director, when you were talking about the international threat of organized crime and computer hacking, and does the Bureau find that the reluctance of financial services companies, other large corporations to come forward when they've been penetrated or when they've been a victim. Do you find that to be a problem?
5 years ago, I'd talk a lot about this problem. When I talk about the issues of intrusions and the financial networks and the like, there was a much greater reluctance, I believe, 5, 8, 9, 10 years ago to come forward. We have continued to say, hey, look, we understand if you've got a problem that you've got some concerns about your intellectual property, you've got some concerns about stock values, you've got some concerns about where an investigation will lead you. I believe that we're over the hump in terms of corporations understanding that they do have to come forward, because what is attacking them can be attacking somebody down the street, and if you do not come forward and put the pieces together, you've got a much more serious set of intrusions that will harm you in the future. And so while I would say there's some instances and corporations today who still will not come forward, that has improved dramatically over the last several years.
Director, thank you very much.